Our last speaker.
Mr.
Mohill
was.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mohill. My apologies. You're next. You're right.
Having a little senior
Sorry.
moment, are you?
I am. I'm having a 11:05 moment right now, so.
That's quite all right. Good evening, Mayor Siniani and council members and the viewing audience. My name is Mike Mohill. Councilman Dave Weaver legacy, 18 years on city council. In 1997, when Councilman Dave Weaver first ran for city council, the unfunded city employees' pension liabilities were less than $200 million. Today, at a recent city council meeting in discussion of employees' pension fund, CalPERS, it was reported we have $1.4 billion, that's the B, billion dollars, unfunded and unsustainable pension liabilities. Since we do not have the money in order to leave the city's corrupt pension system, CalPERS, it will cost the taxpayers about $2.4 billion in bond debt. City council members cannot blame Washington, D.C. or Sacramento, as council members are the ones who negotiate with our city unions. Later, they blame others for our current problems. Councilman Dave Weaver approved the initial pension formula change for safety personnel, fire and police 18 years ago, from 75% of employees' last year's salary to 90% of their last year's salary for life. And after 30 years of service, safety personnel can retire at age 50 from previous age of 55. A 15% increase in salary and pension benefits with 5 fewer years needed to fulfill their retirement needs. Our new millionaires. Retroactive benefits for previous retirees were also given to previous retired employees. Only Band-Aid fixes followed. No serious efforts have been made to reduce our overtime pay, which increases future pension payouts. In private industry, managers do not belong to unions and do not get paid additional compensation for overtime. Several years ago, Councilman Weaver approved allowing city managers to form their own union and get additional pay for overtime plus bonuses, unheard of in private industry. City managers can retire today after 30 years of service at age 50 or 55, depending on their contracts, and receive 75% of their last year income for life. General employees also retire after 30 years of service at age 50 or 55, and again, depending on their contract, and receive 60% of their last year's income for life. In 2014, about 30% of city employees had annual incomes between $100,000 and $200,000 a year. While in office, Councilman Weaver has approved every salary increase for city employees. Today, city employees' compensation is about 25% greater than in the private industry. Glendale Water and Power, GWP. In 1997, when Weaver was elected, our utility company had over $255 million. About 2 years ago, our city manager, Ochoa, stated in 2005, GWP had about $153 million. In 2014, we had less than $40 million. Because of public pressure, council stopped the transferring of millions of dollars from the water side of GWP in violation of Proposition 218 and 26. Councilman Weaver has illegally transferred millions of dollars from GWP to the general fund, money that should have been used for the operation of our utility company. In 1997, when Weaver became councilman, we had over $500 million in unrestricted reserves, like money having in the savings account of our own household in case of emergency. Why today, under Weaver's watch, we have less than $40 million in unrestricted reserves. According to the City Financial CAFRA report, 10 years ago, 50% of our sales tax went for roads and infrastructure. 3 years ago, about 16%, and today none. Today, grant money from county, state, or the federal government is being used to repair our roads. Councilman Weaver's slogan is, "Leave it to Weaver," and look what we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moyle.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't know that I was doing all that by myself. I thought I sat with 4 other council members that also voted, at least 2 others, with me all those years. I wonder how I did all alone. Oh, no, by the way, a few neighbors told me that Mr. Mohill is going around wherever I have my yard sign, and he's putting a letter in their inbox, in their mailbox. And I just wonder if that letter that he just read to us, filled with falsehoods, what's he's putting into the mailboxes? Makes me wonder. You gonna put some more in the mailbox? You haven't put one on my house.
Do you want to touch any of the things that were extraordinarily inaccurate and anything that the gentleman just said?
You'd like to address the issue of the unrestricted reserves? If you, I mean, we can, it's way too late to touch upon everything, if you don't mind.
The unrestricted reserves, at one point, we did have more than what we have right now. We have, what's the unrestricted fund level at this point? We're at 36%. The target is 30% of the appropriation. You are in excess of the charter floor. You're in excess of your target of 35% of the general fund unrestricted reserve. Where the money went that he's referring to was to buy a good deal of the hillsides, the mountains that the city went and purchased to keep them from development. There was a time when we wrote lots of checks to handle lots of community problems, which I believe, Mr. Weaver, you were also part of that.
Yeah, I'll take responsibility for all those good things.
In addition to standing on the grassy knoll and taking a pot shot at JFK, you somehow found time to work that in. But the GWP, we capitalized millions of dollars to do smart grid, to do a number of public improvement projects. There's not $1.5 billion in unfunded liability. There is $1.5 billion in liability for PERS, of which you have $1.1 billion in assets. I mean, it's just...
So it's just $400 million in unfunded?
As opposed to the 1.5. So, and at one point not too long ago, because of the market, you were superfunded. It isn't so much what the council's doing here as opposed to what the economy is doing, but you know this already. So